Okay, guys. So I just watched I watched the snippet of the Pat Bev podcast, Patrick Beverley. It's really interesting because I really appreciate what Pat Bev had to say on his podcast about the Lakers, about his experience there, about his relationship with Russell Westbrook. I really appreciate it because I had different way. You can ask anybody who's close to me and who knows about my fandom for the Lakers and just my love for basketball. um, I have not been the biggest Patrick Beverley fan over the years because he is an irritant. He's great at that, and at times because of that, I allowed that to kind of cloud um, a cloud of fact that Patrick Beverley can play basketball. He is intelligent. He has a great story. The fact that a guy like him to have had some longevity in the NBA now, playing at the highest level, I give him a lot of credit. And he has some leadership qualities. He's a very transparent individual, and some of the stuff that you see on the court is just really just it's just stuff. It's not really personal, and I'm able to, now that I've been able to hear him on platforms like ESPN. Now that I've been able to hear him on his podcast, he's been on other people's podcasts, and and then seeing him, like I said, him coming over to Laker Nation because I'm a big Lakers fan. So I've been able to kind of get, obviously from afar, right? But I've been able to kind of get to know more about Pat Bev, and he actually seems like a pretty solid individual, 10 toes down type of individual, a loyal guy, a hard worker, someone who understands the game, who really wants to win, who's competitive, and I appreciate that about him. So some of the feelings the negative feelings that I might have had, or resentment towards him in the past, I'm letting a lot of that go. And I guess it took for him to come to Laker Nation for that to happen. But it was something that he said on his podcast that I thought was very telling. It was very telling. He didn't go too much into detail, but I thought this was interesting, and I'll play a clip of it. But I thought that, on a podcast he did on Valentine's Day, actually, and I just saw this. I saw a clip of it on social, and then I ended up finding the podcast and watching the full episode and watching this full clip. But he talked about how he learned a lot in this half a season with the Lakers. He learned a whole lot, and he kept saying that he learned a lot about people, right? And at first when he said it, I was wondering what he was alluding to. But one thing he started to say was, he said, he wishes that, I don't think he wanted to be traded by the Lakers. I think he wanted to remain in LA with the Lakers. I think that he definitely said that he wished they could have won more games, a lot more games, because he really doesn't think that their issue had anything to do with basketball. He feels like their issue had a lot to do with everything else that had nothing to do with basketball. Which, that's not surprising for me to hear, but I'm glad to hear from him. But there's another thing that he said. He talked about the vibe of the team. And like I said, he said it wasn't about basketball. Had nothing to do with the game itself. But he said that, he learned a lot about people. There were a lot of cooks in the kitchen. He mentioned that. Even though he tried to, after he said that, he said, oh, it's not a bad thing. But he did say there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen. He talked about for the coaching staff, and he thought the coaching staff did a good job, and they were a cool group of guys, just cool group of coaches. But he did say that they have a tough job on their hands. Excuse me. You could tell he respects the coaching staff and was able to kind of see up close and personal that playing for the Clippers is totally different than going across the hall and playing for the Lakers in terms of the organization. He mentioned something about Russ that I thought was very important and crucial that he mentioned, because if you turn on the TV and you watch, these sports shows, if you turn on the radio, If you turn on a lot of podcasts and you just scroll through social media, you'll see this last like year and a half. You saw a lot of negative coverage about Russell Westbrook. He definitely was scapegoated. Him and Frank Vogel last season, and in this season, I felt like even though he made the sacrifice, accepted Darvin Ham's assignment of, man, trust me, come off the bench, lead that second unit. He did that and did it quite well. He still got a lot of criticism. And a lot of the criticism that I've heard for the past year and a half has not been objective. And it's not just been about basketball. A lot of it has sounded personal. A lot of it has just sounded hateful, unfair. There are some individuals in the media and some people, just fans in general, who no matter what that brother does for the rest of his career, they're going to just have negative things to say about him and his game and his attitude and his aggression and, him in the locker room and all of these different things. But I love that, Pat Bev stepped in on his podcast and made it clear. This whole time that he was on the team, he was teammates with Russ. He said coming into the situation, he did not know that Russ knew the game the way that he knows the game. He said, bro, that brother knows the game of basketball. Like, he provides a different perspective, but he truly knows the game of basketball inside and out. He made that clear. The second thing that he made clear is that, you have a few different buses, right? So I guess you can be on that first bus to get to the arena on the day of a game. And I'm assuming that, guys that are normally on that first bus, you're getting there early. You're trying to get your treatment in and, get warmed up and just showing a different level of commitment to the game. What he was saying is that, Pat Bev and LeBron and guys like AD were typically on that first bus, right? And he alluded to AD being a stud on the court. He alluded to LeBron and just how hard of a worker LeBron is and how his approach is top notch when it comes to the way that he approaches game day, the way that he approaches the offseason and practices and games and all of those different things. And Pat Bev views himself as a hard worker, but he said, here's the key thing that Pat Bev said. Every game, he said every game day, he'd be on that first bus with LeBron and AD, right? Shows up to the arena, shows up to the gym, and Russell Westbrook's already fully dressed. And not only was he already fully dressed, but he had already done his workout. He had already broke a sweat, at the gym for 3 and 4 hours before a game even starts. He said every game day. He said this was this guy's approach. And when the guy, his co-host on the podcast, asked him about the difference in terms of his relationship with Russ now compared to before he came to the Lakers, he said, man, that's my brother for life. He said, we are, that's my dog for life. Like, it's a real thing. Like, we have built a real friendship.
I caught a vibe with the team. It was cool. I wish we would have won a lot more games, obviously. I wish we would have.
Why do you think you didn't?
I don't know. It wasn't basketball. It wasn't basketball. It was other shit. But other shit that you really can't, like, pin and point out. Comes and goes. A little bit here, a little bit there.
So everything maybe just didn't click in the right way?
Yeah. Just the vibes are sometimes on, sometimes off. And inconsistent vibes leads to inconsistent play. How much can you give to the bank? Everybody, I learned a lot.
Like what?
Like about people. Yeah, about people.
Anything that you could share? Anything, any gem that you could give me that I can learn about people?
Nah, just
I'm trying to learn people too. It's one of the hardest things to learn.
Yeah, like to see how Russ is every game day, the first person in the locker room, every single game. And I'm on the first bus. Brian on the first bus too. Like, it's some it's some vets in the league. They only take third bus. Like, we got 3 buses.
That's too many buses, to be honest.
Yes,
you could probably fit on one.
OG, but like I'm on first bus. Bron's on first bus. AD's on first bus. Get to the locker room. Russ is there, dressed, like fully worked out already. Headphones on, locked in. You know, like the way Bron prepared, take care of his body. Like I learned a lot from people.
How would you characterize you and Russ's relationship from when you first came to LA to where it's at right now?
That's my dog. Lifetime dog. Lifetime. Like some real shit.
Yeah.
Like in the city, I don't know. We don't like the vibe of a team. Russ, I'm out, bro. I ain't letting you out alone. You know, like a lot of dinners us together. Like we called a real brother vibe. It was some real shit though, not like, and like I didn't know. I didn't know he knew the game of basketball the way he do. He know the game. He know the game in and out. Like, and it's just a different like perspective. But he knows basketball. Then Bron knows basketball. You know. Then AD's like a stud. Like I came, you know. So I learned a lot about people. The coaches was cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they had to deal with a lot. Coaches had to deal with a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that in like the most positive way. Everybody was trying to get their input to try to win. You know, and everyone's input was different.
Yeah.
You know, so like, shout out to the coaching staff, dog. Man, they have a tough ass job.
I think it's really important for players and for coaches to speak up and speak out, man. I really do. And I think that Pat Bev did a great job of that on this podcast. I think that AD at times did a great job of that in protecting, trying to be protective over his teammate, his former teammate Russ. I thought that Coach Ham did a good job with that as well. There's some people, you see I'm leaving out some names, right? Because there's some guys on that team and some people that are part of the organization that I thought could have did a much better job of that while Russ was there. And it didn't happen. And I would love one day to be able to hear Russ sit down with someone that he trusts and talk about it. I don't know if he will, because he is kind of a private person, but doesn't do a lot of interviews outside of the ones that he has to do contractually. But I give Pat Bev a lot of respect and credit for what he had to say on that podcast. I definitely give him. I look at my perspective on him already had changed for the better since he had been with the Lakers. But just seeing that, and I found the full podcast and watched the full podcast, and seeing that, I'm telling you, it really changed my perspective on Pat Bev in a very positive way. So I'm just curious to what you guys think. Who do you guys think he was talking about when he kept alluding to the people? You know, he learned a lot about people during that process. Who do you think he was talking about? I gave you guys my interpretation. Now it's your turn.